Hello YouTubers, welcome to Big Buddha is Watching. I'm Big Buddha and today I'm looking at Peter Jackson's Forgotten Silver from 1995. He made this in between making Heavenly Creatures and The Frighteners for Hollywood, so this is like an interim film he made. Not really. I call it a film, and it was only 52 minutes long and broadcast on New Zealand TV initially. So kind of more of an experiment on his part, kind of a just having a bit of fun, I guess. The what it is it's a it's a mockumentary, a fake documentary that he made, in which he appears as himself. Oh, so I should briefly mention. I'm crediting Jackson as the director of this. It's actually co-written and co-directed with another filmmaker called Costa Botes or Costa Botes. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce his name. So the two of them made this short little mockumentary in which they both appear as themselves, and the film purports to be the story of Jackson discovering in his auntie's old shed a load of old film canisters, and these canisters sort of date back to around the sort of turn of the century, about 1910 to 1930, and they are the lost films of the filmmaker Colin Mackenzie, who did not exist and in real life, but in the fiction of the film, he is meant to be this filmmaker who pioneered many of the sort of industry standard techniques in filmmaking that would are now commonplace in the industry. But I guess what draws you into the film is the fact that the Colin Mackenzie character is supposed to be the pioneer of these techniques way before they were invented in real life and pioneered in the film industry. I mean, the film talks about how Mackenzie supposedly, when he saw the original travelling picture shows, he decided he wanted to be a part of the film industry. So he invented his own camera, made it from scratch, attached it to a bicycle, and invented the world's first tracking shot. He later then apparently adapted this technique and fit a movie camera to a steam engine, so sort of pioneered locomotion movie making. He supposedly made his own film stocks from leaves and emulsified them in egg whites. He apparently he filmed the inventor and farmer Richard Pearce, who was actually a real life character, and a New Zealand inventor who experimented in aviation travel, and sort of around the same time as the Wright brothers. But in the film, they managed to find footage of Pearce actually completing a successful flight 7 months before the Wright brothers completed theirs, and with digital enhancement, they go in on an extra watching this, and he's got he just happens to have a newspaper in his pocket, so they're able to date the footage to before the Wright brothers' discovery. So it's a kind of sort of, Forrest Gump, Zelig-esque rewriting of history. What to say about this film? I mean, it's what is there to say? I think there might be a shorter review than most, because the film is so short, and it's a fun little diversion before before we get back into sort of Jackson's main canon of work. Um, this the so obviously, like I say, it was a mockumentary, and but what's interesting is that it was almost done as a hoax on Jackson's part. It was broadcast on TV1 in New Zealand, in a slot that was meant for one-off dramas, but it was presented as a real documentary, and some people, and it is actually quite convincingly done. Especially, Jackson appears as himself in the film, and gives a better acting performance than he does in in many of his films as himself. The acting performances he has given in Bad Taste and brief appearances in Brain Dead and what have you, and as well as Jackson appearing in this film, you also have the likes of Sam Neill, Harvey Weinstein, and Leonard Maltin popping up. Leonard Maltin's a renowned US film critic, and I think I'm going to talk a lot about Leonard Maltin in later videos, because all as amateur YouTube movie critics, we all have our heroes to emulate, and Maltin's very much one for me. The star rating system that I use in my videos is very much influenced by Maltin, but I'm going to talk about him at a later date in more detail, I'm sure. But the fact that you have these real people appearing throughout the film lends it a more credibility, which is why some people thought it was a genuine documentary, and Jackson had genuinely discovered these things when it transpired that it was a hoax. It apparently caused some controversy in New Zealand at the time, and then I think the film was later shown as in film festivals as a fiction. It's interesting that Jackson has this sort of Orson Welles War of the Worlds mini hoax on his CV. Obviously not to the same level as convincing an entire nation that they were under attack from Martians, but you can see the influence there. The film is so, like I say, it's got these real life figures playing themselves, and then also in the film you have actors appearing in the old movie footage. There's a couple of interesting cast connections to Lord of the Rings. Actually, there's the main character of Colin Mackenzie, who appears mainly in stills, but there is some moving footage of him, is played by Thomas Robbins, who is probably most recognisable as playing Deagle at the start of Return of the King, the one that Andy Serkis, Smeagol's cousin, murders for the ring and to take for himself, and then slowly turns into Gollum. And also Sarah McLeod is in this, who plays the actress Maybelle, who stars in Mackenzie's epic movie that he shot of the Old Testament story Salome. She's probably most recognisable. Well, apparently she was in Shortland Street, if anyone remembers that. But she also plays Rosie, the hobbit that Samwise marries at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring. Very attractive actress, I think. So this, like I said, the film's really a love letter to early cinema, and you can see Jackson's fascination with sort of war settings. I know he's because this film just sort of bridges between World War One and the Spanish Civil War, and I know. I know Jackson's long since harboured a desire to do a World War One movie, a trench set war movie, but shot in New Zealand. Something I'd be really eager to see, because I just think it would be what he could do with the look of World War One would be something to behold. And of course, more famously, he's been trying to do a version of the Dam Busters, a remake with a screenplay by Stephen Fry for years. But you can see with the World War One setting here, it's not strictly set in World War One, but it's sort of around that time, and the character of Colin Mackenzie does go off to war on a couple of occasions. So you can see Jackson's love there. It's also really a love letter to so the technical side of movie making. You can tell that Jackson's one of Jackson's big loves is just movie cameras and editing and film stock and the whole rigmarole of putting a film together. And he's obviously fascinated with these early pioneers of cinema who were sort of figuring this stuff out on the fly. And I guess you could say, I mean, this is obviously something that was never meant to have any mass mainstream appeal. I think the people who are going to appreciate this the most are probably other filmmakers. You kind of get the impression that he just made this as a bit of fun, as a kind of inside joke towards them. I mean, you have jokes like Colin Mackenzie pioneering colour film stock 25 years before it came out, and sound film as well. I think he records sound on old gramophone records and shoots a sound picture. Unfortunately, he forgets all these actors are Chinese and speaking in Chinese, and he hasn't although he's pioneered sound, he hasn't pioneered subtitles, so none of the audience could understand what any of the characters were saying, so the film flopped. So yeah, the film's I mean, it works mostly. I think the most entertaining part for me was the first 20 minutes when you sort of introduce to the joke, and you kind of go along with it. There are sections in it that kind of seem a little redundant after you've had the sort of early he pioneered this, he pioneered that jokes. Then you get this section where he's trying to get his epic Salome made with communist money and from Russia, but to fund this, he's also making films with this awful stand-up comic, silent vaudeville comic, who during one of his routines he hit a little girl who wanders into the film, and then that becomes the comic stick, and then it ends with him accidentally slapping the Prime Minister of New Zealand and then getting beaten up by the cops. I was never quite sure what the punchline, really, the intended joke of this section is, because it sort of at first I thought it was happy slapping now, because this film came out in 95, so it kind of predates happy slapping by a good 10 years, I'd say so. And it maybe it was a comment on the Rodney King beating in America, because of the beating that the comedian takes from the police. So who knows? But that wasn't a wholly successful section of the film for me. Apparently, the interview sections of this film with the parts that Costa Botas shot. The fake interviews. I think Jackson shot the interviews with the real life characters: Leonard Maltin, Sam Neill, Harvey Weinstein. But his Jackson's big contribution to the film is the recreation of the silent films, or the mock up of the silent films, and they're done really well. I mean, they are, because you know that they're fake. I think you do realise it, but they are so well done that they do come across as well. I can believe that people were fooled, or at least would question whether what they were watching was real or genuine. The big set piece of the film sort of comes in the last 20 minutes, where Jackson goes to find and Costa Botas and a few other filmmakers trek out into the highlands and the highland forests of New Zealand and discover an old set, so that there's an epic scale set that Colin Mackenzie supposedly built for his Salome movie, and then they find buried amongst the sets. It's almost like a sort of documentary, small scale Raiders of the Lost Ark moment, when they go inside the set and pull up one of the tombs in there, and they find the Holy Grail, which is the Salome movie, but all in parts. So then they edit the film together and give it a premiere, and you watch a sort of supposed truncated version of the film itself, and this is where Jackson really shines in this section. It's a full-on recreation of a D.W. Griffith style epic, with a biblical epic, with costumes and set pieces and old school silent era hammy acting, and really well done, really entertaining. You can see it's definitely Jackson directed with all his flair. Many takes and many different angles, and action going on the whole time, as well as seeing the story progress, and all through images as well. No dialogue, obviously, and really well done and really entertaining to watch. I almost forgot, actually, watching it, that it was mocked up, because it was so well done. It was only when we got to the end and you're watching the fake premiere footage that I kind of went, oh yeah, that wasn't genuine, was it? That was obviously something that Jackson has mocked up himself. Yeah, like I say, never slums it, Jackson. She's what I love about him. He'll always brings his A game. So yeah, there you go. It was this is kind of Jackson slumming it in a way between his main features, making something for himself to amuse himself. You kind of guess, but still managing to produce something that's very entertaining and a fun little diversion. The version I watched was on YouTube, and it was not the best picture. I know you can get the DVD, but it's £15 on Amazon, and I as much as the completist I am, I couldn't bring myself to spend £15 on a 50-minute movie, but I'm sure there's special features on there that will make it worth the purchase for you completists out there. So there you go, Forgotten Silver. Fun little film from Jackson, fun little diversion. And I'll give it 4 out of 5. So yeah, that's it. My next review will be back into the proper feature films, and we'll get a proper Jackson movie next time, which is The Frighteners, which I guess is another interim movie in a way for him, sort of his midway point between his low budget, almost art house fare to the big budget Hollywood movies and Lord of the Rings, of course, and so on. I'm going to sign off in a second. Before I do, I know I put this in the introduction to my Heavenly Creatures review, but I'll reiterate it here as well. My sincere apologies to the actress Melanie Linsky, who throughout my Heavenly Creatures review I constantly referred at least 3 or 4 times to as as Melanie Lewinsky. This was not intentional. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, when I'm rambling on in these things, I make these little errors, and I don't hear them at the time. I may have made all sorts throughout this one. I don't know, and I'll probably be apologising for something else in the next one. But throughout the Heavenly Creatures, I kept referring to her as Melanie Lewinsky, and I know that's not her name. I knew it then, and yet for some reason I still kept on saying it. But it was not intentional. Nothing was inferred by this. At no point, to the best of my knowledge, has the actress Melanie Linsky ever performed oral sex on the President of the United States. So let's just nip that in the bud now. And my apologies to her. Like she'll ever watch this, you know. So there you go. Forgotten Silver, good film, 4 out of 5. Check it out on YouTube, or if you want to watch a decent presentation of it, go out and buy the DVD. And apologies again to Melanie Linsky. And that's it. Until next time, I will see you all out there in YouTube land. This is me, Big Buddha, signing off.